What happens when justice targets the wrong man while the real killer walks free? This is the haunting story of Rachel Manning, a bright 18-year-old whose tragic death in 2000 led to one of the most shocking wrongful convictions in modern British crime history. On the night of December 9th, Rachel attended a 70s-themed party in Milton Keynes with her boyfriend Barry White. It should have been a night of fun and laughter, but after an argument outside a nightclub, Rachel disappeared into the darkness and never came home. 2 days later, her body was discovered at a golf course. She had been strangled and brutally beaten across the face with a car steering lock, her features disfigured beyond recognition. Police quickly turned their attention to her boyfriend. Despite weak evidence, Barry White was convicted of her murder in 2002, while his friend Keith Hyatt was jailed for helping to cover it up. For years, Rachel's grieving parents believed the wrong man had been punished. It wasn't until the BBC's Rough Justice investigation uncovered flaws in the case that Barry White's conviction was quashed in 2008. But the question remained, who really killed Rachel Manning? The answer came a decade after the murder. In 2010, Shahidul Ahmed was arrested for a separate sexual assault. When his DNA was tested, it matched the samples taken from Rachel's body. The real killer had finally been unmasked more than 10 years after the crime. In 2010, Ahmed was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 17 years to serve. For Rachel's family, it was a bittersweet victory, justice delayed, but at last not denied. This is more than just a murder story. It's a chilling reminder of how fragile justice can be and how dangerous it is when the wrong man pays the price. Classification: murder. Characteristics: disfigured the victim's face with a car steering lock. Number of victims on date of murder: December 10, 2000. Date of arrest: September 2011. Date of birth: 1971. Victim profile: Rachel Manning, 18. Method of murder: ligature strangulation. Location: Milton Keynes, Buckinghamshire, England, United Kingdom. Status: sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 17 years on September 4, 2013. Rachel Manning, murder man, jailed for killing 19-year-old woman, 11 years after former boyfriend wrongly convicted of her killing. Shahidul Ahmed was ordered to serve a minimum of 17 years in prison, September 5, 2013. A man has been given a life sentence for killing a 19-year-old woman 11 years after her former boyfriend was wrongly jailed for the murder. Shahidul Ahmed, 41, strangled Rachel Manning in Milton Keynes and disposed of her body at a golf course in 2000. He was today convicted of her murder at Luton Crown Court. Barry White was convicted of her murder in 2002, but 5 years later this was quashed by appeal judges and he was acquitted in 2008 after a retrial. Mr. White's friend Keith Hyatt, who was cleared of murder but convicted of conspiracy to pervert the course of justice by helping to dispose of the body in 2002, also had his conviction quashed in 2007 after serving a jail sentence. Mr. Ahmed from Bletchley was ordered to serve a minimum of 17 years. Mr. White said he was over the moon that justice has now been done. He added that he was really happy that Rachel's family have finally got justice and the closure they deserve. Detective Chief Superintendent Rob Mason of Thames Valley Police said, "What is important about the verdict today is justice for Rachel and her family. I cannot praise Rachel's family enough. They have remained dignified and courageous throughout, despite the unimaginable nightmare they have endured. I hope that today will give some comfort to the family after the ordeal they have been through over the past 12 years. This has been a long and difficult investigation which has resulted in 4 criminal trials. Both Barry White and Keith Hyatt gave evidence as prosecution witnesses during this trial, and I would like to thank them for their assistance in helping secure this conviction. Father of 5 Ahmed stood trial earlier this year when a jury failed to reach a verdict. Ahmed, whose DNA was linked to the case following his arrest for a sex attack in 2010, did not give evidence at either trial. The court heard that the former restaurant worker got rid of his car 8 days after Miss Manning's death. She had been strangled and her face disfigured with a steering lock which was found 500 meters from her body. Baljit Ubey, Chief Crown Prosecutor for Thames and Chiltern Crown Prosecution Service, said, "This case involved the tragic murder of a young woman more than 12 years ago. Rachel Manning, who was trying to find her way home after a night out, had the misfortune to come across Ahmed. Rachel Manning murder trial. Shahidul Ahmed jailed for life after boyfriend Barry White's conviction was quashed. Shahidul Ahmed killed Rachel Manning, 18, but evaded justice for 13 years. Miss Manning's boyfriend was wrongly convicted but freed on appeal in 2008. I'm over the moon. Justice has finally been done for Rachel," Barry White said. Ahmed disfigured Rachel's face with car lock, which had his DNA on it. In 2010, he was arrested for a sex attack and DNA tests linked him to murder. Judge at Luton Crown Court sentenced him to minimum of 17 years in jail September 4, 2013. A restaurant waiter who murdered a young woman was jailed for life yesterday, 11 years after her boyfriend was wrongly convicted of her killing. Shahidul Ahmed strangled 19-year-old shop assistant Rachel Manning after she rejected his sexual advances on her way home from a fancy dress party in December 2000. He then bludgeoned her face with a car steering lock in an attempt to make her unrecognizable before hiding her body in undergrowth on a golf course. Miss Manning's boyfriend, Barry White, was convicted of her murder in 2002 and was only freed after a retrial in 2008. The couple's friend Keith Hyatt, now 58, spent 2.5 years in jail after being found guilty of helping Mr. White cover up the murder. His conviction was also quashed, albeit after serving his sentence. Ahmed, a father of 5, was arrested in 2010 after police matched his DNA to traces left on the steering lock in Miss Manning's clothes. Officers had taken a DNA sample 6 months earlier after arresting him for sexually assaulting a female student. She had got into his car after mistakenly thinking he was a taxi driver and only managed to escape after a passerby came to her rescue. Ahmed, 41, who was born in Bangladesh and lived in Bletchley, Buckinghamshire, was found guilty at the end of a retrial at Luton Crown Court yesterday. A jury failed to reach a verdict at his first trial in February, sentencing him to life imprisonment with the order that he serve a minimum of 17 years, Mr. Justice Wilkie said. For almost 10 years, you lived undetected with the knowledge of what you had done. You must have been aware that 2 other people, Barry White and Keith Hyatt, had suffered the agony of being accused, convicted, and imprisoned for offenses of which they were wholly innocent. And although this was eventually put right, nothing can bring back either Rachel's lost life or their lost years. Fortunately, out of the misfortune of the woman attacked by you in 2010, the police were at last able to identify you as the person who had attacked her, then killed her. You took out your anger and frustration on her much-loved face and disfigured it by great violence, having sought to dispose of her where she would not be found for sufficient time to enable you to cover your tracks. He told Miss Manning's parents, "No one can imagine the grief you must have suffered. I can only admire the stoicism you have shown in this court and convey to you my profound sympathy over the loss of your daughter Rachel and everything that has happened since then until today." On the night of December 9, 2000, Miss Manning went with Mr. White to a 70s-themed fancy dress party in Milton Keynes. They went on to Chicago's nightclub, but Miss Manning later walked off alone to catch a taxi. At 2:43 a.m., she used a phone box to call her flatmate in Wolverton, a suburb of Milton Keynes, and said she was upset. She also called Mr. White, then aged 20, and told him she was lost. They agreed to meet at a Blockbuster video store where he and Mr. Hyatt would pick her up. When they arrived at 3:13 a.m. in Mr. Hyatt's van, she was not there. It is likely that she was already dead. A 2-year investigation by the BBC's Rough Justice program uncovered glaring errors in the prosecution case. It commissioned new DNA and forensic tests, which proved it was impossible for the men to have committed the crimes. In 2007, 2.5 years after the program was screened, the Court of Appeal quashed their convictions. Mr. White faced a retrial a year later and was cleared. Yesterday, Mr. White said, "I feel over the moon that justice has finally been done and really happy that Rachel's family have finally got justice and the closure they deserve." Mr. Hyatt added, "We can say we are innocent of this, we never did this, and the right guy has now gone to jail." The innocent boyfriend who lost 6 precious years rotting in a cell. When Barry White left his girlfriend Rachel Manning outside a nightclub after a drunken argument, it was to end in tragedy for her and a 6-year prison nightmare for him. Just before 3 a.m., she called from a phone box to tell him she was lost, and he arranged to pick her up outside a Blockbuster store on an estate. That was the last time he heard her voice. She never arrived at the shop, and her body was found 2 days later. But Mr. White had no time to mourn after becoming the chief suspect in her murder. In 2002, he was jailed for life and spent 6 years in prison, filled with regret for leaving Miss Manning outside the nightclub and not sharing a taxi home with her. Despite his protestations of innocence, many in jail believed he was the ruthless killer of a defenseless teenager. In some high-security prisons, he asked to be placed in solitary confinement because he feared for his safety. After years of legal battles and living with the stigma of being branded a murderer, he still thinks about the life they might have led together. "I was going to ask her to marry me on Christmas Day," he said. "I had bought the ring. You never know, if she had been here today, we might still be married and have 2 lovely kids. It's just a question now." Mr. White's conviction was quashed at the Court of Appeal in 2007, and he was acquitted at a retrial the following year. However, he has never received a penny in compensation for his lost years. "I deserve a life back," he told the BBC. "Getting compensation and an apology from the police, that would be my justice. It was 6 years of my life, my whole 20s pretty much. They're supposed to be the best years of your life, but I was rotting in jail." When asked about facing Rachel's parents, Liz and Paul, during his numerous court appearances, he said, "It wasn't nice, them looking at me like I actually was the murderer of their daughter. I wanted to say that it wasn't me. I loved their daughter too much." Despite another man now starting a life sentence for their daughter's murder, her family still in part blame Mr. White. In a stinging statement, they said yesterday, "We believe Rachel would still be with us today if she had not been abandoned by her boyfriend the night she was attacked, killed, and brutally battered. We cannot forget that." January 22nd, 2013. A woman discovered dead on a golf course phoned her boyfriend to say she was lost on the night she was killed. Luton Crown Court heard. Rachel Manning, 19, had been on a night out with Barry White when they became separated in Milton Keynes. Her body was found at Woburn 3 days later, on 12th December 2000. Shahidul Ahmed of Chestnut Crescent, Bletchley, denies murder. Mr. White spent 6 years in jail before being cleared of murdering Miss Manning. Mr. White, then 20, described his final hours with shop assistant Miss Manning, who lived with two flatmates in Wolverton. The pair had been to his mother's 40th birthday party at a village hall in Milton Keynes, and both were wearing 1970s fancy dress. Upset and angry, at about midnight on 9 December 2000, they went to a nightclub in Milton Keynes. Mr. White said nothing bad happened in the club, but when he and Miss Manning left 2 hours later, he had a row with a stranger and walked off, telling Miss Manning to get a taxi. He said he told her he was walking to a friend's house to get a lift home. He said, "I was a bit upset and angry about what had happened outside the club, a bit heated." He added there was no ill feeling between him and Miss Manning. He said he went to the home of Keith Hyatt on the Fishermead Estate in Milton Keynes and received a phone call on the landline from Miss Manning. "She was telling me she had got lost," he said. "She didn't know where she was. She wanted me to come and get her." Mr. White said he had told her to meet him at a nearby shopping precinct. Convictions quashed. Mr. Hyatt drove Mr. White to get Miss Manning, but she never arrived. They then drove around the Old Brook Estate in Milton Keynes looking for her before returning to Mr. Hyatt's house. Mr. White said he then set off on foot, searching the estate for his girlfriend before calling Mr. Hyatt from a phone box asking him to collect him. Mr. White was taken to his mother's house, arriving at about 05 here GMT on 10 December 2000. After working later that day at JJB Sports in Milton Keynes, Mr. White said he tried to phone Miss Manning's flat. He said on 11 December 2000, he went to her new workplace where she had been due to start work that day and found she had not turned up. "At that stage, I decided to phone police," he said. "I wanted to report her missing." Mr. White was convicted of her murder in 2002. His conviction was later quashed on appeal, and he was acquitted at a retrial in 2008. Restaurant worker strangled teenager and dumped her body on a golf course. Shahidul Ahmed, 41, accused of murdering Rachel Manning, 18. It is alleged to have happened on Sunday, December 10th, 2000. Miss Manning's boyfriend, Barry White, convicted of her murder in 2002. The conviction was later quashed, and he was acquitted in 2008, January 16th, 2013. A restaurant worker was responsible for strangling a teenage girl and dumping her body 12 years ago, a jury heard today. Shahidul Ahmed, 41, murdered shop assistant Rachel Manning, 18, after she made a late-night call from a public phone box in Milton Keynes, then drove her body to a golf course where he left it in the undergrowth, it is alleged. After killing her, he disfigured her face with a car steering lock, it is claimed. Today, Ahmed of Bletchley, Buckinghamshire, went on trial for the murder, which was alleged to have happened on Sunday, December 10th, 2000. The Bangladesh-born defendant denies the charge. Russell Gumpert prosecuting said DNA found on the steering lock matched the accused's. The lock was discovered by the road on the direct route between the spot where the body was hidden and Shahidul Ahmed's home in Bletchley. Luton Crown Court also heard Ahmed sold his car 8 days after Miss Manning, who had been to a fancy dress party, then a nightclub, was murdered. The jury of 7 women and 5 men heard that Ahmed came to police attention in May 2010 when he was arrested for an unrelated matter. It was at this point officers matched his DNA to the unsolved murder, the jury was told. Mr. Gumpert said the victim was strangled with a soft ligature. Her body was deposited in the undergrowth at Woburn Golf Club about 8 miles from the center of Milton Keynes, said the barrister. The prosecution case is that she was murdered by Shahidul Ahmed and that he attacked her close to a telephone box in Milton Keynes from which she had just made a call before driving her body to the golf club and disposing of it. There is no evidence which points to any particular motive, although it seems likely that the impulse to attack her would have been a sexual one. Whether he always intended to kill her or only did so because she was not willing to comply with his demands is unknown. Miss Manning's boyfriend, Barry White, was convicted of her murder in 2002. His conviction was later quashed on appeal, and he was acquitted at a retrial in 2008. Miss Manning had been to a 70s theme party with Mr. White and her friends on Saturday, December 9th, 2000. They went on to Chicago's nightclub and left at about 2:15 a.m. with Mr. White walking to stay at a friend, Keith Hyatt's home. Miss Manning walked off alone to catch a taxi. She phoned her home in Wolverton from the phone box at 2:43 a.m. and spoke to her flatmate to say she was upset. The flatmate, Chris Gardner, phoned her back, but the call failed. She then phoned Mr. White and said she did not know where she was. The pair, who had been drinking, agreed to meet at a Blockbuster video store, and he and Mr. Hyatt would pick her up. When they arrived at 3:13 a.m. in Mr. Hyatt's white van, she was not there. The prosecutor said it was likely that she was already dead. Mr. White went out again later on foot and called to see her at work the next day. When he heard she had not shown up, he alerted the police. Man 40 charged with golf club murder of teenager Rachel Manning 11 years ago after fiancé served 6 years in jail before being cleared, appeared before magistrates in Milton Keynes. Shopworker's half-naked body found dumped on exclusive golf course. Investigation into her death reopened after her fiancé was cleared of her murder after serving 6 years in jail. Barry White in public gallery for today's hearing, December 7, 2011. A middle-aged man appeared in court today charged with the murder of a teenager whose half-naked body was found dumped in the grounds of one of Britain's most exclusive golf courses 11 years ago. Shahidul Ahmed, 40, from Bletchley, appeared at Milton Keynes Magistrates Court and was remanded in custody. He will next appear at Luton Crown Court on December 14th. The investigation into the death of Rachel Manning, 19, was reopened after her fiancé Barry White was cleared of her murder after serving 6 years in jail. He was in the public gallery for today's hearing. Rachel had been strangled before her killer battered her face with a car crook lock. She was found in the grounds of Woburn Golf Club in Milton Keynes Bucks on December 12, 2000. Mr. White, now age 30, was jailed for life in 2002 for her murder, only to be freed after being acquitted of killing her at a retrial. Mr. White's co-accused Keith Hyatt, 58, served 2.5 years for perverting the course of justice relating to the post-death battering of the victim's face before also having his conviction quashed. Rachel had been on her way home from her future mother-in-law's 40th birthday party in Milton Keynes when she disappeared. She had left Chicago's nightclub in Milton Keynes dressed in a 70s-style outfit of white knee-length boots with platform heels, short black skirt, white blouse, and blue wig. The event on December 9, 2000 was a late party to mark future mother-in-law Sharon Shahid's 40th birthday. Rachel, Barry, and other friends went on to another club, going their separate ways around 2:15 a.m. Her body was then found by a man walking his dog on the morning of December 12th in undergrowth at Woburn Golf Club, with the stop lock discovered 600 feet away. It was in 2002 at Aylesbury Crown Court Bucks that Mr. White was convicted of her murder and jailed for life. Mr. Hyatt was convicted of moving her body and disfiguring her and was subsequently jailed for 5 years. A large campaign then began to have the men freed and the convictions quashed, with Dr. Peter Bull, the father of geoscience forensics in the 1990s, who worked on an investigation for BBC's Rough Justice program, labeling the evidence totally implausible. That program was aired in March 2005, 3 years before Mr. White finally walked free. Detective Superintendent Rob Mason, leading the investigation, said yesterday the man Shahidul Ahmed was arrested at his home address at 7 a.m. this morning. He was due to answer police bail on December 12th, but was rearrested after new forensic evidence came to light. Due to the fact this is a live investigation and we have someone in custody, I am unable to give any further details at this time. Rachel's family have been informed. And so the story of Rachel Manning and Shahidul Ahmed leaves us with a chilling lesson. A young woman's life was stolen in the most brutal way possible, her face disfigured, her future erased. For years, her family carried not only the unbearable weight of grief, but also the pain of knowing that justice had failed them. An innocent man, Rachel's own boyfriend, was locked away for 6 long years, branded as a killer while the real murderer walked free. Think about that for a moment. 6 years of a man's life wasted. 6 years where Rachel's true killer escaped justice. 6 years of doubt, of public shame, of questions that never had answers. This case isn't just about murder. It's about a system that faltered, about the dangers of assumptions, and about how fragile truth can be when evidence is misread or mishandled. But in the end, science spoke louder than speculation. DNA, the silent witness that never forgets, finally brought Ahmed to justice more than a decade after the crime. For Rachel's family, the verdict in 20 brought closure but never peace, because justice, when delayed, can never truly heal the wound of loss. And yet their story serves as a warning to us all. It reminds us to question, to demand better from the systems meant to protect us, and to never forget the voices of the victims who cannot speak for themselves. Rachel's voice was silenced, but her story continues to echo through every courtroom, every appeal, every forensic test that fights to uncover the truth. If this story struck you, don't let it end here. Share it, discuss it, and subscribe for more true crime cases that expose not only the darkness of human nature, but also the flaws in justice itself. Because every crime hides a lesson, and every lesson must be told.